Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone podcast with KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and Najee Moye.
Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone. I am Niko Tamurian alongside the great Najee Moye. Najee, how you doing?
Niko, I'm doing well. It's hot.
A little bit.
It's a little warm outside. Yeah.
By Seattle standards?
By Seattle standards, yes. I'm wearing a jacket inside, but it's really like a balmy 74 degrees outside.
Yeah. Hey, we'll take it. And there's nothing that screams summer like talking about the Mariners and the trade deadline.
No, honestly. Yeah, the stove is heating up inside and out, man.
Well, you know, here's the thing. And when we have talked about this team at length for months about what they needed to do, what we needed to see them avoid. And to their credit, here's the deal. They are as advertised. A dominant starting pitching. Hitting could probably use a little bit of help. We'll dive into that shortly. Here's something I'd like to say, though, Najee, and tell me if you agree or disagree with this. You know, fans at this moment a little bit upset with, you know, whether it's 5, 6, 7 game lead in the American League West. But if you said that to me back in like March, like, hey, all things considered, the Mariners are going to have a 5, 6 game lead on the American League West in the last week of June. You'd sign up for that in a heartbeat, right?
I'd sign up for it in a heartbeat. You want to be leading your division. Like, you don't want to be treading water. You don't want to be one of the 800 Major League Baseball teams that we see right now that are about 45 and 45, or even less than that.
Yeah,
and are 500. You know, the Mariners are several games over 500. You want to be leading your division, especially when you consider you're leading a division against the hated Houston Astros and the defending World Series champion Texas Rangers. What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it.
Are people perturbed about the Mariners leading the division, or was it just greed?
I think it's that it was 10 games last week.
See. Yeah.
And so you hit a couple series losses with the Guardians and then the Marlins at the same time that the Astros won 5 in a row, Texas 4 in a row, so on and so forth. I just think there's that concern among Mariner fans that they've been here before and it's like, oh gosh, here we go again, that kind of thing. But it's the same fans that, in my opinion, were just last week saying, hey, and I was right there with them. This team feels different.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
This team does feel different. This team does hit. I think they hit more than they did last year. They hit better. I think when you mentioned, you know, a couple of reasons for pause for Mariners fans. If you look at the series that they lost, the Marlins, you don't want to lose to the Marlins, first of all. And the Guardians are one of the best teams in the American League. So it's kind of like, it's a very odd thing. But, you know, as I tell people, as I tell myself, as I tell people who I like, people who I dislike, baseball is a funny sport and it is a long. You play 162 games after all. You can't live and die with every series, although it may seem like it.
Well, yeah.
It may seem like it, but you really can't, honestly.
I gave the example that like a couple years ago, like 2022, for example, which we knew was going to be a good year. And there were so many series along the way. Oh, Yankees are in town. Oh, these are, and I just in that moment felt like these were like these incredible moments. Like we got to be there, and certainly we were from a coverage standpoint there. But ultimately, when it was said and done, I don't even remember who won some of those series. I remember a lot of those games, sure, but I ultimately don't remember who won a lot of those games. I'm going to adjust this camera really quick. There we go. It wants to escape on me again.
Oh my gosh! Niko versus the camera, round 5 over here.
No, and it's still shifted on me.
Where's it going?
I don't know. It's AI.
Who knows? You have to do the Captain Phillips.
Who knows what it's ever doing with AI?
Yes.
I'm just going to have to sit up taller, and it keeps moving. At any rate, you know, just in that moment, I couldn't even tell you who won that series. And that's the point, is that like in 162 games, there's going to be so many ebbs and flows. There's going to be so many different things. This isn't a PSA or a lecture even. It's just let's see, like 6-game lead, 6-game deficit in June. You just don't know.
LAX, like Aaron Rodgers says, just relax.
I like it,
but I do get what you mean, because there's some series that you'll you know, the teams will run up against that you're like, these feel like must win series. You know, like the Texas series last weekend. You know, that felt like, or 2 weekends ago now. It felt like a must win series, but if you're looking back at the big scheme of things, are you going to remember it? I mean, it's important for wins and losses, but at the same time, it's like it's a feeling.
It's a feeling.
It's definitely a feeling. But I'll tell you what, this Mariners team doing great right now. Schedule looking ahead, pretty ruthless. I'm not gonna lie.
Sure.
Yeah, pretty ruthless. You got games against the Rays here. We got games against the Twins, who are also trying to make hay in the AL Central. You got the Orioles, and also you got the Blue Jays and the Padres. And the Blue Jays and Padres are teams that could be buyers, could be sellers.
Right.
I think you maybe see a future Blue Jay, a current Blue Jay, turning into a future Mariner.
That would be great.
We'll talk about that later on, though. But I mean, but we're all getting closer and closer to the trade deadline, and things could be happening. Niko, what do you say?
Yeah, I think things are going to happen, and I think that that's the theme of this show. We're going to talk about different things the Mariners can or can't do, different things that we would like to see them do, because the reality is this, this is a team that's clearly good enough. They're in first place.
Yeah.
But if you add just a couple pieces here and there, you're talking about a team that could potentially contend for a World Series.
Right.
And that's how close we are.
Well, this is a World Series rotation, But
Definitely.
I think we're looking, and it's been like that for a couple of years now. It's like, how long is that window going to stay open is the question. You talk about little things. It could be big things, I mean, talking about the bullpen, that's kind of ravaged a bit.
Yeah.
And we talk about the bats, who I've been talking for years now. The Mariners need a 40 home run guy.
Right.
Need another 40 home run guy. It may end up being Cal Raleigh, and then, who knows if Julio's going to hit 40 home runs, but who else is out there?
Right.
Is that guy on the team right now? I don't think so.
Sure.
So I mean, I've said this time and time again. The Mariners comfortable with winning games 2-3, 2-0, 2-0, 2-1.
Whatever it is. I mean, I think they have to have been so far.
Right.
And there's been, when you get those wins, there's been, as Scott Service, relentlessly says, and for good reason, it's been timely hitting.
Right.
We've seen all those one-run wins. We've seen walk-off wins or top of the ninth wins if they're on the road, whatever it might be. So the team has a flair for the dramatic, and they seem to get that. It would just be nice if they didn't have to do that more often than not,
Yeah. No, I mean, you look at some of the better teams in the league. I mean, we're talking about the Mariners are one of the teams, But I think about lineups like the Braves lineup, the Yankees lineup when they're firing, when the Dodgers lineup is firing. I mean, even when the Padres lineup is firing, they're dropping 8 runs on you casually. Even the Red Sox lately. Niko's trying to figure out what's going on with his camera right now.
Still figure it out.
Doing a little stretching. Everyone needs to go out and stretch.
A little stretch. Well, Najee makes a good point.
But I do think that the Mariners, to match, I mean, you want a complementary team. You want a hitting that complements the defense, that complements the pitching, that complements the bullpen. What needs to be done, Niko?
Well,
what can be done, I should say.
I think that you need, and we're going to dive into this with some fancy, fun segments here, but I'm going to lay it out from a nutshell standpoint. You got to add at least one more bat.
Right.
Where that is and where that person comes from, I'll leave that up to Jerry and Justin in the front office. But I just think you need at least one more potent bat, something that's going to give a little bit of a pressure off Julio, or is gonna be just one more option just to make that lineup a little bit more dangerous. And I think, the way this bullpen is structured, there's a lot of talent there. But listen, Greg Santos hasn't pitched yet. We're expecting him in July. Brash being out for the year. The bullpen isn't what they plan on it being. And kudos to guys like Taylor Saucedo, Andres Munoz. The list goes on. They've been great, but I think they could use an arm from the bullpen just to make it one more thing in playoff settings that's going to be that much more dangerous. Here's the thing. The rotation being what it is, you can shuffle through. Essentially, you can say you only need 4 starters in your rotation, whereas the Mariners technically have about 6 if you count Emerson Hancock.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's great, but what you can never have enough of is bullpen arms in the playoffs, I'm saying. And so that's going to be, I think they make a move for both, whether it's some splash move like we've talked about in the past, or whether it's something more Mariners, something that's going to be effective. But then maybe your casual fans like, who's that? But your diehards like, okay, yeah, this is cool. I'm all in on that. You know what I'm saying?
Are you seeing a Luis Castillo like trade? They made that trade for him a couple years
That's
ago.
That's a good comparison, I think.
So are you for hitters or for
hitters?
For hitters. Okay, so what hitter is out there that's available that you're considering maybe can be at the same level?
Personally intrigued by what the Rays have to offer. Freedies and obviously Randy Arozarena are guys that are gonna
great name.
Diaz, absolutely.
Randy Arozarena. I love that name.
And the Marlins are a team that could be selling guys like Jazz Chisholm and folks like that are, because they're not contending. And Jazz might be a little bit unattainable, maybe. I'm not sure, but it's ironic that they played at Miami and Tampa, because I think that's kind of the two teams that might make a lot of sense as trade partners.
Yeah, and to piggyback off a team that they played recently, Luis Robert.
Yeah,
just recently from the White Sox, and that's a huge bet. Who's playing on a team who's honestly going to struggle to win?
I think the price is going to be crazy on him. That's the thing.
I think the price would be crazy. Well, and that's the thing though. How much of it? Ideally, if you have put on, what you want to happen for Mariners fans. You want to bolster the bullpen. You want to bring a guy back maybe who you lost recently last year, and you want to have a big bat, maybe or multiple big bats. Is that possible with the prospects? The asking price for some of these guys, I think even for Jazz Chisholm, I think is going to be huge because he's kind of a bit like the Marlins' focal point.
And that's the thing. The Mariners have prospects. They're loaded in that regard.
Right.
Recent tallies have them at 7 of the top 100 prospects in baseball.
Can't sneeze at that.
But do you want to deplete that for Luis Robert, who has an injury history and things like that? I mean, that's going to be the big question. Why I think a Luis Castillo type trade makes more sense, where they traded Noelvi Marte, who is currently serving a PED suspension, Levi Stout, who was subsequently released by the Reds, then came back to the Mariners and was released again. Something like that, where they gave up 3 prospects basically. Got a guy who's their ace right now.
Yeah. One of their aces.
They have 4 aces, really 5 if you want, something like that would be great. Is that possible? We're going to have to wait and see about a little over a month to the deadline, and it's going to be interesting to see what they can get for and what they have to give up to do that.
I think the asking price for when you think about trading someone like a big bat or a big reliever, let's say it's Paul Sewell coming back to the Mariners, let's say, I think you can almost even guarantee a reliever, because I think it's even easier to trade for a reliever than I think a top line hitter.
Sewell would be great to come back.
Sewell,
love it here.
Can you imagine? I think it'd be great. But it's hard for me to imagine the Mariners taking a massive swing at the bat, because they love their prospects.
Yeah.
They love Harry Ford.
Yeah, I think Harry might be the guy that would be traded because of Cal Raleigh being so indispensable at catcher.
Right.
So that's my thought on it.
Yeah, but there's other guys that are that we're leaning towards. I mean, there's one guy on the other team in New York that we talk about all the time.
So let's talk about New York for a second, because I want to bring this up. This is my favorite segment, fair or foul. Fair or foul, Najee. The Mariners should give up those prospects that we were just talking about for 3 months of renting Pete Alonso.
So you mentioned in your 4 o'clock sportscast that we're about halfway through the year.
81 games as of Monday.
Which is kind of wild to think about.
It is.
Pete Alonso. Well, let's see. Okay. The polar bear, first of all. He's a very strong guy. He's a hitter. But this being said, a rental. They're leading a division. A lot of teams may not want to give up a player like Pete Alonso. The Mets are streaking right now. Ever since, I'm not sure if you heard about this. They had the Grimace night.
The Grimace night was crazy because of the win streak.
The win streak since then. I mean, So I mean, I think the asking price for some of these guys may fluctuate a little bit as good or bad as their team is doing at the particular time.
Sure.
The Mets still think. I mean, look at their payroll. They think they have a good team. Obviously. And they may actually have a good team record-wise. They're on a tear, and I think that's going to cost a lot to get Pete Alonso. For a rental, I'm not that sure. If you asked me this question 2 weeks ago, I was going to say fair is fair. I'm okay with like a rental just to. I mean, you can even re-sign him if you choose to.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pieces, and I've been talking about Vladdy Jr. too. That's also a lot of pieces.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough.
I don't like it for a rental. Like if
intention to sign in the future,
right? Like so when they traded for Castillo, technically he was a rental, but they signed him to that long-term deal within weeks of trading for him. If you're doing something with that, Pete Alonso,
I'm okay with that. Yeah, that's completely fair to me. Yes.
But if you're like just getting 3 months, and who knows, maybe he is just enough extra pop in that lineup to protect your other big hitters like Julio and Cal, and provide just another bit of run support for this great rotation. It's almost worth it in that alone, but it's like, okay, how many prospects for a rental?
That's a lot.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a lot.
So like if you're talking about a similar asking price to Castillo and you get Pete to resign, I'm okay with it.
It's probably worth it.
Even have him DH, keep him healthy.
Yeah.
Or he can still play first occasionally for Ty, and but he can be what Mitch Garver, who was played better lately. Let's be clear about that. But he could be kind of like what Mitch Garver was intended to be when he was signed. And Garver has certainly made himself even more versatile by being now the new backup catcher in addition to DH, and Sevi Zavala was let go. So
think about how many tickets you would sell if you got a guy like Pete Alonso to come to the Mariners.
Yeah.
I mean, it may even be worth it as a rental. I mean, honestly, just based on name
I'd say it's
recognition.
close if you're a rental. If you can get him to sign for like 2-3 years, even more, then you're cool with it.
So how much would it? So what would it cost? Okay, so I maintain to get any one of these guys. Robert Chisholm is going to cost a lot.
Yeah,
Alonso, even Vladdy.
I think Alonso is probably the cheapest of that group.
I think you're still getting rid of Harry Ford and a pitcher, and
I agree.
A starting pitcher, maybe a prospect pitcher.
All right, so I'll throw it to you this way: Harry Ford, Emerson Hancock for Pete Alonso. That's a tough one because
I think I'd do it though.
I think
I would, and I would want to sign Pete Alonso in the future.
I think yes.
Yeah.
If you can get some kind of like sign and trade, like they used to call it in the NBA, right?
Yeah, sign and trade. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm with that. Okay. So we're fair on that.
It was with heavy trepidation.
With conditions.
With heavy trepidation, because I was like,
with conditions.
I like the way this team is built right now. Honestly, and I like having 6 deep pitchers.
Well, that's a good point. You like having that because Brian Woo's health has been a question.
And that being said, I mean, the 6th pitcher with Brian Woo's health, I mean, could, if everything stays the way it is, could be someone who moves to the bullpen in the
absolutely
fall,
no question about it. So there's still trepidation with conditions. It's not a slam dunk either way.
Right.
Let me ask you this, Najee. We asked folks, would they rather, if they can only make one trade, if you can only trade for one person, which is not obviously true. But if you can only
might be true, honestly, given the asking price.
Yeah, well, maybe you're right. That's a great point to make. If you could only trade for one person, are you trading for a bat or are you trading for bullpen help?
The thing is,
and by the way, the poll we have on the screen, 90% said they would trade for a bat if they can only make one trade. 10%. It was like 91.1 to 9.9%. So we just called it 90-10.
So Mariners fans have been needing like a big scary bat in their lineup.
Yeah.
I mean, for a while, it was Julio. Cal Raleigh has picked up a lot of slack this year. Julio he's not quite on the pace. I honestly believe that if Julio Rodriguez, and this is a hot take, he's been in the Home Run Derby the last 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Didn't win, right? A lot of people are kind of like worried that doing the Home Run Derby may ruin a swing.
You've heard it.
I've heard it.
And Julio goes all out in that thing.
Right. Right. I think a home run derby for him would liven his swing up.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of swings and misses. There's a lot of pop-ups. I just think seeing continuous in a live game type situation, I think seeing a lot of continuous action like that. Is he going to get invited this year? Probably not. Cal might.
He might get invited though because he's had such crazy performances the last 2 years.
As a catcher.
Oh, I was saying Julio.
Well, Julio might. I mean, but also I think Cal's probably more likely to be in it. But as a catcher, it's kind of rare.
Yeah, I don't know, like fatigue and whatnot. If they do, like Kirby was an all-star last year, didn't go because they're like, well, we want to reserve him because he's due to start.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. But there's a lot more like consideration.
Yeah.
For teams and things like that.
I think Julio needs to join the All-Star game, and I'd side with the fans. I'd say hitting because honestly, if you beat a team by 10 runs just because you give up 5, you don't really need a bullpen for that. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
But that being said, you get these close games at the end of the year or in the playoffs, and you need someone that you can just look for in the bullpen, just like you got me for 3 innings.
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree. I like it.
I'm not sure, and they have that, but how long?
For how long?
Exactly.
And I say this. You nailed it. The Mariners need a scary bat. I'm not quite sure that I would like 10%, like only saying they need a bullpen.
Not very that's very dramatic.
Because I think, because I just don't think it's as, for lack of a better term, as sexy as bringing in Pete Alonso even, or Vladdy, or Luis Robert, or some of these guys from the Rays and Marlins we talked about that could be good fits for how the Mariners play baseball. But it's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. And I know Scott Service has kind of lamented how he's had to, through no fault of the team, just kind of injuries and how some of these games have gone. He's kind of lamented how he's had to run that bullpen.
It's a long season.
It is,
it's a long season. We're only halfway.
Like, if you're telling me Paul Sewald's coming back, sign me the heck up.
Sign me up.
You know what I'm saying?
We didn't want him to leave in the first place.
No, nobody wanted him to leave.
No.
I always remember I was there the day of the deadline when he got traded, and he was so emotional. He went out and just played a little catch. Like, it was just to kind of like vent and like let it go. And he was crying a little bit. He was here for 4 years. And you got to remember, Sewald struggled. Like we talk about it. He doesn't like to talk necessarily, but we talk about when I was in Syracuse, he was playing in Syracuse as the Mets AAA team because he just was not in a good spot in his career.
Right.
And then he just gets rejuvenated. And he ended up being a star for Seattle, and he's doing great things for Arizona. So it's it'd be great to have him back here because Seattle's kind of where he like rejuvenated everything. And certainly it'd be exciting to see what we could do with having a Mariners team that has that kind of bullpen. And adding, I know the question was adding one or the other, but if you can add a little bit of a bullpen help and then add a big bat, I mean, this is a team that I would buy all in on.
100%.
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of Mariners fans are already all in on them anyway. You know, I was actually at the last the Sunday Rangers game last weekend on Father's Day. Mariners fans are ready.
Oh my goodness!
If they weren't ready last year, if they weren't ready the year before, and they should have been ready the year before anyway.
Yeah,
they are primed and ready. That ballpark is electric.
Yeah,
even with the hot dogs falling from the sky. Have you seen that?
No, that's great though.
I love that.
That's a great thing.
I love that.
That's a great thing. So kind of we kind of agree the Mariners have to do something. But my next question on fair or foul: should we be worried about the Houston Astros?
Okay, so
regardless of what the Mariners do, should we be worried about the Astros?
Here's the thing: if the Mariners keep winning, they shouldn't be worried about anyone.
Right.
That being said, they are your biggest rival, and you should at least always have a ear on them, no matter what. You know, I mean, honestly, there may be a team to looking to buy. I mean, they had a slow start, but I think this may run into a situation where it's like the Mariners may need to trade for someone to keep them away from Houston.
Well, sure.
What do you think?
You know, when it comes to the Astros,
worry is a weird word.
It's maybe not the best word, but when it comes to the Astros, what gets me about them is that they have the championship experience, winning a couple years ago, right?
Right.
They've been here a bunch. And so it's funny, I was able to speak at the Seattle Mariners Women's Club. Probably close to 6 weeks ago now. I can't remember the exact date, but it was May. It was early May. And one of the folks there asked me, who are you most worried about in the division? And this is back when the Rangers and Mariners were kind of fighting for first and the Astros were distant third. And I said unequivocally the Houston Astros.
Right.
Because that, the rotation was banged up. And certainly, some of their plans didn't work out with Abreu, who's been let go completely. Yeah. That was their big offseason signing.
Right.
I just, there's something about the Astros that even last year, everybody was saying, oh, it's going to be the Rangers winning the division or maybe the Mariners. And here comes the Astros surging late to win that division. Now, of course, the Rangers won the World Series, but the Astros were just there the whole time. And I think they're going to be there again. Is this the year when the Bulls finally beat the Pistons in 1991? Is this
opening the floodgates to 6 championships?
Is it? Well, we can dare to dream.
We can dare to dream, man.
But is this that year where the Mariners just keep running into the Astros, just like the Bulls kept running into the Pistons? Is this the year they finally overtake them? I would say yes. But does that mean I'm this is done deal? Of course not.
Of course not. Look, this Astros team is good. They just swept the Orioles this past couple days ago.
Yeah.
The Orioles are fighting for the lead, for the best team. The Orioles are one of the best teams in baseball, fighting for the lead in the AL East.
Yeah.
As a Yankees fan, I can't stand the Orioles right now. But what you'll see is that the Mariners also have to face the Orioles in a couple of series.
Right.
I think that'd be a good measure. I mean, we talk about series that you want to win. Series that, as I said before, you look forward to. These are must-win series, okay? But 2 years from now, it's not going to matter. Right. I mean, it'll matter in the wins and losses, but you want to play well against the best teams, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying the Mariners are going to sweep the Orioles, but I'm saying you need to look at that series and this series against the Rays also, because this is another team that cannot be sneezed at either.
Yeah.
You want to play well. Play well. Should they be worried about the Astros? Yeah, they should be worried about the Rangers too. But they're 6 games behind currently.
Right.
Now. So I don't know. Worries. Is it fair or foul to be worried? I think it's fair to be worried. I'm worried all the time. It's called having anxiety. I'm worried all the time. But yeah, I'm moderately worried because you don't have a 12-game lead or anything like that.
Yeah, I agree.
You're only halfway through the year.
Sum it up. If I'd ask you right now, I think we have a poll right now on my X page. AL West champs, no question. Slightly concerned because they need to add some offense. Slightly concerned because Houston and Texas are surging. Which one of those do you most apply your outlook on the Mariners right now? Do you want me to repeat those?
Yeah, go ahead. Because when you said Houston or Texas, I just thought this ain't Texas.
Well, yeah, I know.
From Beyonce.
Are you? Hey, no worries. This team, the Mariners, are going to win the AL West. Are you slightly concerned because the Mariners need to add a bat, or are you slightly concerned because of the Houston Astros surging and the Texas Rangers surging?
I'm concerned about the bat.
Yeah.
But I've been concerned about the bat for 3 years now. It's been consistent concern.
Sure.
You see guys like Teoscar Hernandez who are now in Los Angeles. They're strikeout artists.
Right.
They're also home run artists.
Yeah.
I can tell you when I watched the Dodgers play the Yankees a couple weeks ago, I was distraught watching Teoscar Hernandez single-handedly dismantle the Yankees. This past week, we saw Jerry Kelenic for the Braves do the exact same thing.
Sure.
Traumatic. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying we want these guys back, but I'm saying home runs are home runs. That's how you win the game. So,
yeah.
The Mariners want to win, do things differently, and I get that. But a 3-run home run does not. With a swing of the bat, come on now.
Here's the thing with the Mariners: they've gotten the timely hits when they need them, as we talked about. But it's like, wouldn't it be nice to just have that consistently? Yeah. And anytime we get psyched about somebody warming up, it's like they kind of cool down. And to the Mariners' credit, while they're in first, is maybe somebody else picks it up, maybe somebody else heats up, and maybe Jorge Polanco coming back from the injured list, he sparks something, right?
Huge. I'm waiting for Julio to heat up, man.
And but what's interesting about the last couple of weeks, remember a few weeks ago we were talking about on this show with the Mariners, do you like absolutely need to add somebody, or are you kind of standing pat so you can keep the chemistry you had?
Right.
And there was a merit to that argument, but now it's like, okay, you got to do something.
Yeah.
It's changed a little bit.
It has changed a little bit only because we're getting closer and closer to the trade deadline. Things are not going quite as swimmingly as we would like it to go, but then timely hits, they're timely. That's the thing. That you love them when you can get them, but can you really get them all the time is the question. You have to lock in. I think that's even a skill. Clutchness is a skill.
Yeah.
And it's something to work on. Maybe they need Scott Service to get thrown out of more games.
Well, how clutch was that?
That was kind of crazy.
Because he kept Cal Raleigh in the game.
Yeah.
And Cal Raleigh hit the walk-off grand slam. So, by the way, before we leave on that note, did you see the John Boy of that video? The John Boy breakdown on Twitter?
No, I haven't.
I cannot share that on this podcast because there was quite a bit of foul language, but it's probably one of his best videos he's ever done. The John Boy on social media.
Give us a one sheet on it real quick.
Well, so if you're not familiar with John Boy, he's this guy on social media who's brilliant at lip reading.
Mm-hmm.
And so he takes these videos of whether it's fights, like he did the Angels Mariners brawl of 2022, whether it's a fight or an ejection, whatever it might be, he lip reads it. And he's like uncanny with it. And actually in this particular instance, you can almost see what Cal's saying. He's like, you haven't called that all blanking night. And the umpire gets in, basically Service comes out and takes the brunt. And the umpire's like, hey, sometimes I don't have good days. He's like, and the umpire's like, I was up at 3:30 in the morning. And Scott's like, I'm sorry. It was some of the best work I've ever seen done in that regard. So if you're comfortable with seeing some foul language, it was quite funny. It's something we can't share on this, but
no.
Check it out when you get back.
We only
to your
do fair language here.
Put your headphones in and then check it out when you get back to your desk.
Yes, I'll look at it.
Well, Najee, so let's summarize for everybody here. We think the Mariners got to make a move. If we're in a perfect world, they get a high leverage bullpen arm, a big time bat, while not entirely selling the farm. We're not totally opposed to getting Pete Alonso if the conditions are right.
If the conditions are right, I think what the Mariners will actually do is actually just kind of, if we're looking for big home run swings with Vladdy or Pete Alonso,
I
think we're probably going to get a double. I think we're looking for a couple guys who, they can get 15 home runs ish.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Just some guys to fill out the lineup and just make them a little bit more beefy. I can see that happening. But that being said, they were talking about winning 54% of the games, and the Mariners have won 56% of the games so far.
How about it?
How about that? Halfway through the year, so
wow.
Well, at the top of the AL West, no less.
Top of the AL West, above that 54% mark. We'll take it.
He's
Najee Moye. I'm Niko Tamurian. You just watched the KOMO Sports End Zone. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.